going to talk about intelligence testing. Okay, intelligence testing is one of the things that psychologists do. Generally, intelligence testing is going to cover cognitive evaluation, diagnosis of learning disabilities, determination of giftedness, prediction of future academic achievement. Sometimes the diagnosis of neurological or psychiatric disorders, that would be a piece of it. And sometimes we do these things for evaluation of potential employees. However, of note, intelligence is somewhat helpful to know, but really we find that people are, best at jobs if they have more like grit and good work history and determination and, actually seeing them do the job. Do they really want to do it? Intelligence is somewhat predictable. Okay. Now, as far as intelligence tests go, the first one was the Stanford-Binet. Okay, the Stanford-Binet was used widely for many, many years. It was originally created for school children, however, then created for adults and all of this. When we talk about an IQ score, the average IQ score is 100, okay? The average IQ score is 100, right? And then we have what we call a standard deviation of 15, okay? So we can go different ways, 15 points. So one standard deviation is going to be 15 points, so 115. Two standard deviations is going to be 130, right? If that makes sense. Sometimes we also call this the deviation quotient or deviation intelligence. All right. So we sometimes say this person is 2 standard deviations above the mean or 2 standard deviations below the mean. And that's sort of how we measure intelligence in numbers. All right. So again, do note, I've bolded this here. Do note that the average IQ score is 100. All right. The types of abilities that are assessed on the Stanford-Binet: fluid reasoning, knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual-spatial reasoning, and working memory. Remember, as I do these, you're welcome to pause me, read more, move on. Okay, I will move on. Now, the most commonly used test currently is the WAIS. The WAIS is for adults. There are versions for younger kids, the WISC, and even younger kids. Okay, the WIPSI. So the WAIS is the most commonly used intelligence test. Again, the average or mean intelligence score is still 100 with a standard deviation of 15. We maintain that. We maintain those numbers and that language, right? Let me move on here. So with the scales on the WAIS, and I do want you to know these things. We look at verbal comprehension. In verbal comprehension, we're going to look at vocabulary, their knowledge base, so information, their comprehension abilities, and we ask them about similarities. How are these two things alike? Okay. Perceptual reasoning. For perceptual reasoning, we're going to use something called matrix reasoning. Matrix reasoning, you sort of choose which pattern logically flows after a set of patterns, right? So we say, at the very basic, star, circle, star, circle, star, blank. And then you have to decide which of these shapes goes next. Okay, figure it out. Block design. I'm going to pull this up here. I like to show pictures. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up here. Block design. Block design is kind of fun. It's kind of like doing puzzles, right? So with blocks, each block has 2 sides that are solid red, 2 sides that are solid white, and 2 sides that are half white and half red, like this. We show them a picture and say, So here's a testing booklet here. We would show them a picture, and then we would say, with these blocks, please make this design. And then they have to kind of manipulate all the blocks in order to put them together. We measure how long it takes them and if they can complete it. If you're dealing with kids, you also want to look at frustration tolerance. How do they throw the blocks? Do they try and try and try, or do they quit? Okay. Go back here. So, what's also fun if you're bored someday, you can always look up online and look at these different things to see, picture completion, for example. We have other things here. And they may show you something like this, like what's missing, right? We say in picture completion, what's missing here? Point to what is missing. And they point and say, this rung on the ladder is missing, or the owl's foot is missing. Okay. Going back. Next, we have working memory. Working memory, we're going to have digit span forward and digit span backwards. Okay. And that is, I'm going to say some numbers, and then I want you to say them after me. And I start with 3 numbers, and then I go to 4 numbers, and then I go to 5 numbers. Right? So I will say 3, 7, 4, 2, 6. Now you say them, and the person repeats them back to me or doesn't. And then we write down if they get them or don't. So then we have digit span backwards, right? We say, I'm going to say some numbers, and you'll say them to me backwards. 5, 9, 3. And then you have to say them in the reverse order. Okay? Letter number sequencing is where we then mix numbers and letters. So I say, B, 4, Q, 9, A, right? And you have to do that. So it's a little bit difficult, but we're testing recall here. Okay? I do want you to know some of these things. So do know which kind of tests go along with verbal comprehension, which one with perceptual reasoning, which one with working memory, and the last one, with processing speed. Okay? Processing speed actually has a lot of written things. So with coding, it will have, if you remember, do I have that pulled up somewhere? That would be fun. So basically, if you remember, you'd have, let's see. Let's do this. Waste coding images. Okay, so I always liked these things in school. I think I'm a giant nerd now that I say it out loud, but I knew that already, so we're good. Right, so this symbol goes with 1, this symbol goes with 2, this symbol goes with 3, and then you have, kind of blank spaces like this later, and then you have to put each symbol below. And then you're going to score how quickly they do it, frustration on it, do they get them right, do they get them wrong, do they leave blanks? All of these pieces go into it. Okay. Moving right along. This is, again, just another structure of the ways. Okay? Let's talk about personality testing. Now, I have shoved everything onto one slide, so we're going to stay on this slide for a few minutes, but we're going to pop off of it to look at some things, and I have some things in my lap here, testing materials, that I can show you. So with personality testings, we have self-report clinical inventories. Those are the gold standard. These are the things that we use that are standardized. Reliability, validity is fantastic. Projective tests, I'm going to show some of them to you. We rarely use these now, but some people still do. So first, let's talk about the self-report measures. The most commonly used is the MMPI-2, and that is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Okay, the MMPI-2 has 500 some questions on it. And they're true-false questions. So they say things like, this is interesting, they say things like, I like mechanics magazines. True or false, right? They also say things like, I feel sad and down most of the day. True or false, right? So you have so many questions. And we look at reliability and validity. And also, interestingly and fun on these measures is they have what you call lie scales, or they look for people who are malingering, which is faking it. They can test, they can say, hey, this person answered in a way that looks like they're faking good, or it looks like they answered in a way that they're faking bad, or it looks like they answered in a way where they just randomly bubbled in things and didn't pay attention at all. Okay? So the MMPI-2 is most commonly used. There's also one for adolescents. The language is a little bit easier. The language is still kind of tough on this. So some people use the PAI instead, and the PAI is becoming more and more popular. But the PAI, actually, I have a copy of that one, is used for clients maybe with lower reading or language skills. The PAI has 344 questions on it that are scored as, I don't know if you can see, but it's scored as either false, not at all true, slightly true, mainly true, or very true. So it's not just true or false. You get sort of more of a range here. But if you can see, you basically just go through. You would probably have a little bubble sheet that goes along with this, so it's easier to score. And you just go through and you answer all the questions. Okay? And again, it has great lie scales and detects people that weren't trying this and that. Okay? Now, the other one that's on here is the NEO-PI, and these are going to be about our Big Five personality traits. So if you're not familiar with the Big Five, that's fine. You should probably look them up just if you want to move on in this field. But it focuses more on personality traits as to where the MMPI and the PAI are going to diagnose disorders. Okay. So, things to know. Self-report clinical inventories. MMPI is most commonly used. The PAI is going to be used if you have sort of lower reading skills, and other people just like it better and just choose to use it. Okay, so again, remember this. Now let's talk projective tests. When I went to graduate school, I was actually trained to use the Rorschach. I would not choose to use it now, simply because I struggle with being okay with its validity and reliability. Other people really believe in it and believe in its scoring system. So I have cards. I got a hold of all these cards because I worked at a place a long time ago where they just didn't want to use them anymore. And I said, well, I really like teaching and I want to do that for a while, so can I have them? And it did. So the idea is this, and here's how it works. You ready? We say to a client, what do you see here? And then they say, I see, fill in the blank on your own. Okay? And then we say, okay, and we write down every single word that they say. Okay? And then we go to the next card. And we say, what do you see here? And they say, blah, blah, blah. And we write it all down. Okay? Now, ideally, people give you 2 or more answers. People who are manic give you lots and lots and lots of answers. But at least 2, right? So we would say, well, I see a butterfly and I see 2 pigs, or whatever. Some people will say, like, I see pigs eating food. You know, so interestingly, when we code these things, we code kind of what is the theme of what they're saying. Is there action? Is there texture? Is there, what, all of these different things that go into the diagnosis. Okay? I'll show you one more for fun, a colorful one. Most of them are black and white. Some of them are colored. Say, what do you see here? Okay. That's the Rorschach. Some people like these tests because people are less guarded. right? When you answer these other questions, you think, oh my gosh, what does this mean about me? And how will they assume this? And what will it mean? You know, blah, 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 blah. And maybe you might answer them worried, or you may answer them trying to look better or trying to look worse. With these, you have no idea how I'm scoring them or what it means when I score them, right? I love this. So therefore, you may say whatever it is that you're going to say. Oh yeah, this is a good one. See what you will. People tend to see like Eiffel Towers and crabs and things like that. Anyway, let's move on from that. But the idea is that you're less guarded. Now, another one that is not used anymore is the TAT, or the Thematic Apperception Test. Now, I will show you that even the binder that this is in is old and breaking on me. But this test, and you can see my manual here, is from copyright 1943. I'm going to go back to the PAI here. Remember, this is what the PAI scoring or test looks like. Here's the answer sheet for the TAT. Ready? Nothing. It's nothing. You just write down everything they say. Okay, and it's not totally nothing. There is a page here where you write down themes and things like that. So I'm going to show you this. So some of them are pretty terrible. Okay, we'll just do this. I don't know if you can see this, but in the TAT, the instructions are that we say, I want you to tell me a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's it. Okay. I'll show you just some others. That. Just randomly, like, pick one. This. You can tell these are old and culturally my screen is backwards from what I see. And I love that, oh yeah, this one. It's hard to tell a positive story about some of these things. I mean, we're sort of Depression era when we made these. Oh, here's a good one. It's blank, right? Tell me a story. Okay. So the idea here again is we don't really use these, but what is good about them is if you ever have somebody who comes in that just won't talk, or you just need something to sort of start with, it starts a conversation. So at least there's that. Okay. I think that's all you need to know about personality testing. Behavioral